Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, before I actually make my contribution, I'd just like to draw to the attention of Parliament that it's Honourable Minister Sarah Rathu's birthday this morning. May we give him happy birthday. I understand he's turning 40 years old. Mr. Speaker, sir, I thank His Excellency the President for his most gracious speech and for setting the broad direction for the 2020-2021 parliamentary session with the three key priorities: our containment of COVID-19, our focus on inclusive economic recovery, and our response to the climate, oceans and biodiversity crisis. Mr. Speaker, sir, we are still in an extraordinarily difficult and uncertain period. The entire world continues to suffer from the COVID-19 pandemic, and there continues to be no reference point in living memory for a crisis of this scale and complexity. There have been over 68.5 million COVID-19 cases globally, and more than 1.5 million people have lost their lives. Every government is combating severe economic and financial stress, joblessness and uncertainty. We have been encouraged, Mr. Speaker, sir, by the positive news of a vaccine rollout in the United Kingdom. We're in close discussions with our development partners on setting aside funding for a viable vaccine, and we have used our voice in various global forums to ensure the vaccine is treated as a global public good rather than a private commodity. But we must acknowledge the equal distribution of this vaccine will take some time, and we are very grateful to the Australian government that has made a public pledge to ensure that Pacific Island countries will be moved up the ladder in terms of the availability of this vaccine. In the here and now, the world economy still faces the most serious socio-economic crisis in 100 years, and Fiji and other small island and tourism-dependent economies have taken the hardest hit. Our borders have been closed for more than 9 months, businesses are severely affected, thousands are without jobs, our public finances are under severe strain, and socio-economic challenges have intensified. Fiji faces our sharpest economic contraction in history. We had said that the contraction would be about 21%, but the latest figures demonstrate that the contraction now will be 19%, some improvement. Our tax revenues halved, forcing us to borrow to sustain the provision of public services and sustain critical support to our people. We are confronting the uncertainty we face with the strategic effort to spur domestic activity and investment where possible. But we know our full recovery hinges on the safe reopening of our borders so that our people, particularly in the tourism sector, can return to full-time work and government can re-establish the flows of revenue. In the meantime, Mr. Speaker, sir, it is critical that we maintain our status as a COVID-contained country, which we have already done for more than 240 days. Mr. Speaker, sir, I'd like to thank, of course, our Honourable Prime Minister, the decisive leadership he's provided, our frontline workers, our doctors, nurses and members of the disciplined forces for their dedication, hard work and sacrifice in keeping Fiji safe. We'd also like to thank all those who have downloaded and installed the Care Fiji contact tracing app, and thank all Fijians who have been abiding by the COVID-19 restrictions and measures that have been put in place for everyone's safety. These measures are very important to give confidence to countries like Australia and New Zealand to safely reopen their borders with Fiji. Even when a vaccine is available, the threat of COVID-19 will not simply disappear, and we cannot be complacent. Mr. Speaker, sir, to cushion the blow to our economy in the early months of this pandemic, we acted quickly, announcing a COVID-19 response budget 1 week after the announcement of our first case to reposition government revenues towards combating the virus and preparing our long-term response. We built on that plan through our latest financial budget and our Fijian COVID-safe economic recovery framework, as we have steadily rolled out measures to mitigate the economic impact, including innovative programs like Blue Lanes and pathways for luxury tourism to support our people's livelihoods as best as we can. Mr. Speaker, sir, we've been told that we have been responsible and we have been consistent, and will continue to be consistent with regards to support for our people. Mr. Speaker, sir, I'd like to just very quickly also mention about comparison of debt relative to GDP and just compare nominal values over the years. We've had a good track record on our GDP, debt to GDP ratio, bring it down from 56% in 2010 to around 43% in 2015. And then, of course, Mr. Speaker, sir, came along T.C. Winston, Josie, Kenny and Gita, and now COVID-19. We had to borrow more, but apart from the borrowing, the massive shrink in our nominal GDP also led to the spike in the debt to GDP ratio projected to reach about 83%. But, Mr. Speaker, sir, debt ratio would have been around 71% with the same level of borrowing if nominal GDP was assumed at pre-COVID levels. So debt is 12 percentage points higher just because of the impact on our GDP. And once GDP picks up, our debt ratio will, of course, stabilize. We will, of course, also have to reduce our deficits and cut back on expenditure. And we are, Mr. Speaker, sir, committed to fiscal sustainability ensuring macroeconomic stability. Meanwhile, Mr. Speaker, sir, the opposition has clearly decided they will not hesitate to turn this crisis into a game of political point scoring. They've continued to mislead the people as if COVID-19 was created by the government, and the economic challenges and job losses are something that we have created. Of course not, Mr. Speaker, sir. Every single country in the world is struggling with this pandemic. Fiji is among the safest places in the world. Our overriding focus must be on our economy's long-term economic recovery, or else the challenge of 2020 risks permanently scarring our national development. Mr. Speaker, Sir Honourable Prasad, for example, as always, has claimed the worst and offered us nothing in response. He claims government doesn't have a plan and doesn't have a vision. Then he attacked our Fijian COVID-safe economic recovery framework without any regard for what that framework has actually allowed the Fijian people to achieve through this extremely tough period. Honourable Prasad forgets every business that we have opened today is open because of that framework. There are people in their jobs today because of that framework. Mr. Speaker, sir, the same framework is quick to dismiss is the reason why Fiji remains COVID-contained. It provided the guidelines that have helped our industries and our national carrier Fiji Airways to step up safety protocols and kept many of our tourism properties operational despite borders being closed. It is the reason some businesses like nightclub operators have repurposed their workspaces and are bringing people back to work. In fact, we've had new businesses open up in the past few weeks. The ones that we've recently opened, Peri Peri and in Moju Plaza, the grills in Lodala Bay. Incidentally, the grills in Lodala Bay employed 25 people, 23 of whom actually had lost their jobs because of COVID-19. Mr. Speaker, sir, we've also got various investments taking place. Approximately 15 local businesses that previously operated as nightclubs have remodeled and opened as pubs or taverns, re-employing another 120 Fijians that had been laid off due to the pandemic. It is the framework that has enabled the Love Our Locals program and the high-end segments of tourism to recommence, including luxury VIP lanes and blue lanes, where we saw close to 100 vessels coming to Fiji, and we are seeing new growth opportunities as a result. It has led to more Fijians being rehired. This may not be much for them or for Honourable Prasad, but every Fijian matters to the Fiji First Government. And even if one person gets re-employed and is able to support his or her family better, we believe we are doing something right. The framework is also the basis upon which travel discussions with Australia are going on. We've got some very deep discussions with them. And indeed, the Australian High Commissioner, who spoke at the AG's conference last weekend, publicly applauded us for the framework and all the good work the Fijian government is doing, both through its Ministry of Health and also overall from its economic recovery framework. Mr. Speaker, so the framework is the basis for which COVID-related social restrictions have been eased. It may not have been obvious to Honourable Prasad, but the framework is structured into phases that will assist government working with stakeholders to escalate or de-escalate COVID safety measures as the situation demands. And again, Mr. Speaker, sir, the Fijian COVID Safe Economic Recovery Framework is the reason why we're one of only few countries in the world where our people, we Fijians, are able to move around quite freely while the pandemic rages on. If this is not a solid plan, then I challenge Honourable Prasad and the others to come up with a better one. Mr. Speaker, sir, given the vast uncertainty we are faced with, Mr. Speaker, so the government has a plan with many initiatives announced in the 2020-2021 budget and many more to come. And we cannot and will not be distracted by these gimmicks and cheap political shots. Mr. Speaker, so in the budget we drastically cut tourism sector taxes and tariffs, including the removal of 6% STT, reduction in departure tax from 200 to 100, ECAL reduction from 10 to 5, and of course increasing the threshold for the ECAL threshold from 1.25 million to 3 million. Cutting alcohol taxes down. The reason why, Mr. Speaker, sir, we've done this, including 2,000 items, is that if you go to the web pages now in the tourism sector, Mr. Speaker, sir, Bali, Phuket, they're all advertising for $99 for 5 nights, $100 for 7 nights. They are positioning themselves for the tourism market when the borders open. We also need to do that, Mr. Speaker, sir, and this is government's contribution to ensure we don't lose our share of the market, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, again, on top of that, we provide $60 million as part of the Fiji Recovery Rebate Package that will provide $400 per passenger subsidy to the first 150,000 tourists. Again, we've been criticized for that. But it means that actual people will get back to work. The economy gets the robustness within it. We were predicting nearly 1 million tourists, for which we were being told that we're not doing quick enough. And today, we'll be all very grateful, even if we got 20,000 tourists. That's the situation. Mr. Speaker, sir, we've been told, again, like I mentioned, about the economy not being diverse enough. Mr. Speaker, sir, if you look at the GDP contribution to the economy only about 15 years ago, 20 years ago, it was even less diversified. Less diversified. Mr. Speaker, sir, now our economy is a lot more diversified. Yes, there's no doubt there's a heavy dependence on tourism, Mr. Speaker, sir. But, Mr. Speaker, sir, the reality of the matter is the opposition were berating us, saying, why aren't we achieving 1 million tourists? Why aren't we achieving it? And now they're saying tourism is not good for us. They're saying we are too heavily dependent on tourism. Mr. Speaker, sir, today we have a manufacturing sector that was almost non-existent 10, 15 years ago in such a way. We have a fast-growing ICT industry, a booming construction sector, financial and telecommunication services, and a very good in the top end segment in the clothes manufacturing sector. Mr. Speaker, sir, our agriculture sector, is highlighted by Minister for Agriculture, is again becoming more diversified. Recently, we were told by Fiji Airways, in the agricultural produce that is now going out to USA, the flights to LA, apart from Yangwana, which is the highest agriculture produce that's going out, is turmeric, haldi, because now everybody is getting health conscious. And healthy is now the next best thing to, the superfood. Mr. Speaker, sir, of course, we need to do more to diversify our economy. And of course, we are doing that. But it takes time. You cannot do that overnight, Mr. Speaker, sir. We need to ensure we have the competitive advantage with the right skills and the technology and the access to the market. Otherwise, any efforts would be a waste and would be unsustainable. It's not that easy, Mr. Speaker, sir. But I'll have you know that we are already talking to Australia and New Zealand and mooted the idea, because given what's happened after COVID-19, some people are looking at moving their manufacturing away from countries like China and far away manufacturing sites. So we're looking at how we can reposition ourselves in setting up assembly plants in Fiji for markets closer to home like Australia and New Zealand. That's why, Mr. Speaker, sir, we've been providing targeted tax incentives in areas such as ICT, pharmaceuticals, manufacturing, housing development, construction, set up of private medical facilities, aged care homes and retirement villages, because these are the areas that we have strengths in. Development of warehouses, our public-private partnership with Aspen Medical, Mr. Speaker, sir, which will feed into the retirement village packages, and providing support to the manufacturing retail sector and many more. That's why we've targeted expenditure and support in areas like agriculture, fisheries, forestry, rural maritime development. This is to further diversify the economy. Mr. Speaker, sir, it doesn't mean that if we start throwing money, our economy will be diversified. It has to be specifically targeted. We are also, Mr. Speaker, sir, in that respect, like to highlight to members of the opposition into this Parliament, Mr. Speaker, sir, we are now getting direct budget support from ADB, from World Bank, EU, Australia, New Zealand. These entities won't give direct budget support unless they trust your public financial management system and your management of the economy, Mr. Speaker, sir. Normally they give aid in kind, or they give, we can go off and buy this. They give actual money to the budget support itself, Mr. Speaker, sir. They are working together with us in supporting deep reforms in improving fiscal management, improving the business and investment climate, improving policy and legal and institutional frameworks, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, we of course need to also support and promote domestic investments, apart from continuing to attract foreign investment. This is why we introduced new incentives for the construction sector, remove stamp duties, remove the need to obtain business licenses, Mr. Speaker, sir. And Mr. Speaker, sir, we're also giving start-up initiatives and incentives to them, streamlining our business process. The Minister for Local Government and others have actually highlighted the digitalization of these services. Even in this pandemic, Mr. Speaker, sir, we have about $15 million allocated for the processing of building permits, etc. So government can get these approvals done really quickly, which will instill confidence. Honorable Nawai Kula claimed we've sold our ports, we're selling everything else. We are not. Fiji Ports is still majority Fijian owned. The Fijian government still owns 39%. FNPF owns the largest share of it, Mr. Speaker, sir. He said that we've sold our printing press. It's been sold to Fijian Holdings. You're all saying sell it to Fijian Holdings. It's now been sold to Fijian Holdings. You are now questioning that. Mr. Speaker, sir, there's been a number of inconsistencies that have been raised, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, we've also been working, Mr. Speaker, sir, with the banks. As you know that we tabled the bill yesterday, Mr. Speaker, sir, and we've worked with the banks. We're very grateful for them, to them, I should say, in giving holidays not just for home people who borrowed monies to purchase homes, but also for commercial purposes and also for personal loans, Mr. Speaker, sir. It's very critical that we work with the banks in the private sector in this respect. And Mr. Speaker, sir, we also need to ensure that we relook and review our national development plan as COVID-19 actually thwarted our progress and development. It's time we need to get a reset mode. Mr. Speaker, sir, many jobs have been lost directly due to the crisis. And again, a lot of misinformation was told about FNPF. We've been working in partnership with FNPF, Mr. Speaker, sir, to allow for a payout of $220 per fortnight for those fully unemployed and a pro rata payment for those in reduced hours, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, as everybody knows, that this is a crisis we're not sure when it is going to end. That's why we needed a sustainable solution to support those that are unemployed. We could have jumped up and said, government fully pay all those who are affected, we'll pay you $500 a fortnight. But we are being practical and upfront about this, Mr. Speaker, sir. A populist solution, which the opposition always come and sort of pontificate over here, would have been unsustainable. Yes. And unlike the opposition, we do not cave into populism. Being leaders, we have to make tough decisions. Mr. Speaker, sir, every parliamentary session is so obvious each of them are here fighting for the small collection of votes, without any regard for the larger national or global picture. Honorable Kurindrani talks about his constituency. That is how the Fiji First government does not operate. That is why, rather than empty out the coffers, we allowed affected Fijians to access funds through the FNPF general account, and government would provide top-ups to those that have exhausted their general account balance. When we started, we were providing a top-up of around 10% of the total payout. As numbers started exhausting the general account balances, the top-ups have increased to over 45%, and this would obviously continue to rise further. So, Mr. Speaker, so far around $176 million has been paid out, of which government tops up about $79 million. Over 115,000 people have been assisted with government providing top-ups to close to 50,000 of them. Let's not forget why the FNPF is in a strong position to do that, to help Fijians ride out this crisis. We implemented the reforms necessary to make FNPF financially sustainable. We ended the cross-subsidization from the younger workers and low-income workers that placed FNPF on the path to financial insolvency. Because we did, Fijians can access the general accounts now in times of crisis, whether they be cyclones or COVID-19, and they can count on the fact that the majority of their funds in their protected account or preserved accounts will be there for them in retirement. Honorable Gavoka talked about workers getting paid $12.38 a week, simply dividing the total payout by government to 177,000 members. That does not work that way, Mr. Speaker, sir. All these sort of misleading comments, Mr. Speaker, sir, does not actually augur well. I'd like to just very quickly go on, and the responses, Mr. Speaker, sir, I think the comments require some responses. Some people talked about independence of institutions. Please go to section 129. The police have complete constitutional independence. DPP 117, Solicitor General's Office 116, FICAC 115. These are independent legal institutions. They operate on their own. They are not dictated by anybody, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, Honorable Kepa, same rhetoric. Constitution was not done the right way. She had absolutely no problems in 1990 Constitution. No problems with the 1997 Constitution, because the genesis of that was the racist 1990 Constitution. No problems with that. 19 consultations held throughout Fiji, Mr. Speaker, sir, for this particular Constitution, Mr. Speaker, sir. Again, Mr. Speaker, sir, Honorable Bulan Uda, let me get to him before I finish. This gentleman, Mr. Speaker, sir, told us to cast out the devils from ourselves. He said that his former leader cast out the devil. He did not cast out the devil. He simply resigned your party to go and form another party, as we just found out this morning, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, the other point is, Honorable Bulan Uda told the Prime Minister and I to cast the devils from out from us. I have to tell you, Mr. Speaker, sir, this gentleman, at the height of the 2000 crisis, and I've said this in Parliament before, there's a documentary evidence on this where you are talking about it in front of Civic Towers, where he stood up and he said, who's the head of the legislature? Mahendra Chaudhry, Kendia, Hindu, Tevoro. Who's the head of the judiciary? Reddy, Kendia, Hindu, Tevoro. Who's the head of the executive? Chaudhry, Kendia, Hindu, Tevoro. Nobody, Mr. Speaker, sir. Nobody, Mr. Speaker, sir, is a devil. Nobody is the devil. The devil is around there, but you do not have the right to do that. And this is the kind of hypocrisy and the contradiction that we've been facing throughout this parliament. We've had people, Mr. Speaker, sir, come to this chamber and actually insult His Excellency the President, questioning him. Somebody saying, he said, my government. Every single president, Mr. Speaker, sir, or governor will always say, my government. As you would know, Mr. Speaker, sir, you've been also the president. When they deliver the speech, it's the government of the day. You speak on their behalf because the president represents the state. Mr. Speaker, sir, I'd like to thank His Excellency for his most gracious speech. Thank you.